Hi, I'm Brianna Motzkitz from the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington, and today we're going to do the double twist. So today all you will need is a jelly roll or 40 2.5-inch strips. So the quilt behind me is just a bunch of fun brown and cream strips that I had in my stash that I cut up to create the double twist quilt. So you can choose from any jelly roll that you have at home, some really pretty ones. This Maryland pre-cut is really pretty. It's black, taupe, and cream. So if you really like that idea, but maybe it's a little too brown for you, Maryland would be a really good option if you like it more black, white, and creamy. So very pretty. There's lots and lots of options. And again, you only need 40 for this quilt. So you have lots of options to choose from. You need 2.5-inch strips, and your quilt will be roughly 54 by 54 inch finished. So once you've selected your jelly roll, and your 40 strips. So if you have a jelly roll like one of these that might have 42 pieces, you can decide which ones you don't want to use. Maybe there's 2 that just are not your favorite. Maybe there's 2 that are really light that again aren't your favorite. You're gonna have to make a choice and take 2 out. The other thing that I like to do is to make it nice and random and scrappy, put all of your strips into a bag, kind of shake them all up. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take 4 strips. So grab out of your bag 4 strips. Don't get lost in the layout of your strips. It does not matter. Take 4 strips. It can be 2 lights, 2 darks, whatever you want. And you're going to sew strip sets. Your strip sets are going to consist of 4 strips sewn together, right sides together, to make a about 8.5 by 40 inch long strip set. Make sure when you're sewing your strips together, when you do right sides together, you're going to sew 1 strip from top to bottom all the way down, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, if you're not sure if your sewing machine does an exact 1/4 inch, just be consistent. Use this machine that you're using right now the entire time while you are stitching your strip sets together, because then all your strips will be the same. If you go from this machine to your sister-in-law's machine to somebody else's machine, there could be an inconsistency in your stitch quality. Meaning you might have a little bit bigger of a 1/4 inch seam allowance or a little bit smaller. So whatever you start your machine on, finish your strip sets with that machine. So you're sewing, 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 and then when you add your next strip, start from where the side you ended. So we end on this side, we're gonna start our next strip on this side. Again, right sides together. Doesn't matter what's next, just pull one out of the hat. The only thing my rule is to make this a planned random quilt is it just cannot be the same material. I want all 4 to be something different. They could be the same print, but not the same color. And so then you're gonna start here, sew, 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 your 1/4 inch seam allowance, keep sewing, keep sewing, keep sewing. And then when you get to the end of this one, this is where you're gonna start your 4th strip, which is one of these. And then continue to sew. The main reason you want to offset, you're going to start from here, sew to the left, start at the right, sew to the left, you know, back and forth like that, is it disperses the stretch of your strip, which means when you're pressing, it's going to be a whole lot easier to press all those seams nicely, and you won't have any of that weird warping and stretching in weird places. So that's a really nice thing to do, is sew from one end, switch it, switch it. Same thing if you're doing a bargello. That's also one of the fun techniques, is make sure you offset those strips. So go ahead and make all of your strip sets. You will end up with 10 strip sets, and then we'll get to the pressing. So we have taken our 40 2.5-inch strips and we've sewn them into our sets of 4. So again, whether you've used a really pretty curated jelly roll strip or used your own strips, we're going to sew them all into sets of 4. And you should have 10 strip sets. With these 10 strip sets, we are going to go ahead and give them all a really good press. We want them to be, again, as flat as possible, making sure we get all of those little folds out of here. And make sure, just as always, just a rule of thumb, always press to the dark. So you can see on this one, when I pressed, I did press this to the dark, and then I just pressed these the rest of the way. So again, whatever you think is dark, go ahead and press that way. If you feel like none of the ones you are in your strip set are really super dark, it really doesn't matter, just press one direction. Like in this guy, I think I'd press everyone this direction. And then just press everything nice and flat. Give it some really good, use your best press, use your starch, nice and stiff. And we're going to head and we're going to press everybody, and then we'll cut everything back up. All right, so we've got all 10 of our strip sets all sewn together. They're all pressed. They're all beautifully starched and smell so good. We are going to cut them all up again. So the main trick to this, so in case your 1/4 inch is different from mine, a little bigger, a little smaller, what we're going to do is we're going to cut these into squares. So I'm going to show you first cutting with my shape cut. So if you guys have purchased a shape cut from us before, inherited one, gifted one, you've got one, but you haven't used it yet here, Cindy did do a really fun video on it. Otherwise, let me just show you how to cut your strips. So first of all, we're going to see how wide our strips are. So right here, we are 8.5 inches wide. So that means we're going to cut 8.5 inch squares. So the really nice thing about using our shape cut is we've got all of these lines to be able to make sure we're nice and straight. You can line up on the bottom of your strip if you'd like, or what I like to do, I like to bump it down just a little bit, and I like to put my line right on my seam. And you can see all of those seams have this beautiful line. I know I'm going to have a nice straight block. Otherwise, you might cut up a little crookedy. And I think it's important when we're doing strips that our strips are straight when we're cutting them. Okay, so I've turned my rotary cutter around so you guys can see it as if I'm standing next to you and you can see it. There's two things you can do. You can also take a wet erase marker. You can mark where you're supposed to cut in case it's hard to see, because remember, your shape cut is every 1/2 inch is a nice little slice. So you can make a mark at, you're going to cut at 0 to true up that edge. We're going to cut at 8.5. If your block measures 9 inches or 8 inches, again, we're going to make a square. So if you have an 8 inch strip, cut them 8 inch squares. In my case, I've got 8.5. I'm going to cut 8.5. So I'm going to cut on 0, 8.5, and 17. So again, a wet erase marker just puts that visual point to you so you know exactly where you're cutting, and we're not going to have any miscuts, hopefully. So I'm all straight here, here, straight, straight, straight. I'm going to cut on the 0, the 8.5, and the 17. I'm going to pick up my shape cut, move to the side, and you've got your waist piece. Whoop. An 8.5 inch block and an 8.5 inch block. Or then you're just going to slide the rest of your strip down and do it again. So since this piece is actually pretty straight, I'm just going to nudge that 0 line right there, right up against that cut edge. Not too much where you have a wrinkle, just nice so you have a nice clean edge. And again, we're going to line up our lines so we have a nice straight edge. We're straight here. We're straight here. If we find that it's not very straight, we can always move this over, recut a straight line, and make sure we are straight. It's possible. You can always take it back to the iron, put some best press on it, get it nice kind of wet again, and kind of re-stretch that out if you need to. So we're straight, straight, straight. Our 0 looks good. We're going to go 8.5 and 17. There's another 1, another 2, and let's see, I think we can get 1 more out of here. And again, and you can see that I don't care where my mat is. My mat is just to protect my counter space. All I care about is that my lines here are lined up perfectly on my seam to create a nice square block. 0 looks good. I'm going to do 8.5, and there's my extra little bit of waist. So you don't have very much at all, and you're going to be able to get 5 8.5 inch blocks per strip. Again, yours might vary just a little bit depending on your seam allowance, but with my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm getting 5 8.5 inch squares per strip set. I'm going to cut 1 more strip set up with you, and I'm just going to use my regular ruler. So again, this is just a Quilter Select ruler, nothing fancy. It can be a 6x12, a 6x24, a 10 inch square, anything you want. You can measure off your mat if you feel like you want to. I am not someone who uses my mat to cut. I prefer my ruler just because it works best for me. So I don't know the nice way to cut backwards on these, so I'm going to just cut it my way so I know I'm going to get a 8.5-inch block. But again, what I'm going to do, it's good to, let me take these marks off here. Again, it's wet erase, so you just have to slob it on yourself or get a little spritz of something and wipe off your residue. So again, we're going to do 8.5. So I'm just going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. I'm just going to make a nice mark here. I'm going to do the same thing up here, just so I know right where my 8.5-inch piece is. Because again, this is one of those funky 12.5-inch ones. So I have a weird, funny 12.5-inch half-inch piece over here. So it just ensures a quality check to make sure you know your 8.5, the whole length of your ruler. All right, so what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take these lines that run horizontally through my ruler and line them up on my nice pressed seam edge. Make sure they're all lined up. I'm also going to make sure that 8.5 inches, I'm going to be cutting off my selvage. Because again, all of this discolored, the little holes, the raw edges, that's all your salvage. You don't want that in your quilt. It will not come out. It will never change. You'll always have a hole or always have the discoloration. So you always want to make sure you cut that off. You can cut it off before you cut your strip, but I tend to do it a little backwards. I like to measure, okay, here's my straight. I have no salvage, no holes. I'm straight. Here's my 8.5-inch mark. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And then I move my strip out of the way to make sure I made that clean cut. I'm then going to take that first cut, flip that bad boy around, do the same thing again. Here's my 8.5-inch mark. Line that up. Line up my straight lines. And then cut off that selvage piece. And then there's my 8.5-inch square. And then you'll do that one at a time all the way down. And if for any reason you feel like you're getting crooked, like these don't line up real nice, just go ahead and restart. Re-true that up and flip that around just at the very beginning. I can usually get 5 to 6 cuts real nice before I have to re-true up that edge. And again, I'll be getting 5. If you're comfortable, you can always stack a few of these up at a time. I tend to like to do it one at a time. I definitely use my shape cut for this, but one at a time just to ensure I have a straight edge. Because if you have 2 strips stacked onto each other, you might have that possibility of one slipping and you no longer have a nice straight seam running across your 8.5-inch block. All right, so we're going to cut up all of our strip sets into our squares, whether again that's 8.5 for you, 8, 9, but we're going to cut all of our squares and then be ready for the next step. Okay, so now that all of the busy work is done, we've got our beautiful stack of 8.5-inch squares, and now we're going to sew them back together again. So we're going to take 2 squares. I would say 2 different ones. It doesn't matter. Just like when we did our strip sets, throw them in a box, pull 2, those are the 2 you're sewing together. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. However, pick 2. I would suggest not the same from the same strip, but you do whatever you want to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay 1 square right side up, running horizontally. The second strip, we're going to do right sides together, but we're going to run the strips vertically and do right sides together. Just like that. And now we're going to take the sewing machine and we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. Just so a nice big box all the way around. So the easiest way again is to start, I start coming in the middle. So, stop. I pivot on my sewing machine, keep going, pivot, keep going, pivot, and then overlock where I started. So we've made sewed our block into a square. Now what we're going to do is take our ruler and we're going to head and we're going to cut an X. I'm going to take it, we're going to go from one corner to the other corner, and cut. Then what I do is I just take my ruler, move my ruler, go from corner to corner, and cut. That's going to leave you with 4 half square triangles. Oops. 4 half square triangles. That look. There's no. Oh goodness. Like this. So very cool. I missed a whole bunch. I should have pushed a little harder. I'm just going to snip these. So they are kind of oblong. So we're going to make all of these into that. So again, choose 2 different. It doesn't matter what it is. Choose 2 different squares. Remember to flop them so they're opposites. So all the way around, cut them into 4ths. You're going to end up with a whole bunch of these bad boys. Get these pressed, and then we'll play with some placement and how to rearrange these to make a really cute throw quilt. Okay, so I have cut up my blocks, got them all pressed, and I also snipped all of my dog ears. So if you can see here, see that little ear right here? And we'll go ahead and snip those off. I found that my little Fiskars rag snips were really easy because there's a ton of dog snips because every one of them are going to have 2. And since it's spring loaded, it makes it really nice. It doesn't wear out your hands so fast. You are going to make a whole lot of confetti. So you can save it for the wedding you're going to. It's biodegradable, won't hurt a bird. You know, all's good. Or just make sure you're over a garbage can or somewhere that you can just swipe it into the garbage because you're going to make a lot of these little dog ears. I clip them off because this makes it easier to sew. There's one less thing to worry about getting in your way, and it also makes it easier to put up on the design wall. So I snipped up my dog ears, pressed everything really good. I didn't trim up any blocks. If you feel like you had struggled and you feel like not every block looked the same, looked a little wonky, feel free to trim to whatever size you want. I felt that mine were all pretty equal. There were a few that maybe should be trimmed, but 3 out of the whole lot of them, I felt like it wasn't worth trimming every single block. You can always smidge a little, pull a little, tug a little to get it all straightened up in here. So nothing was trimmed for me. I did make it so there was a little bit of a pattern that you can see that borders things, whether it's a light border or a dark border. You can do a little 4 patch kind of in the middle here. The one thing you want to keep in mind is that from every strip set, you're going to get 5 squares, which means the last 3 blocks that are missing here are a bit scrappier, which is okay. I'm going to stick them in here when I sew my whole quilt together, and you can try to pick out my super scrappy ones. But because we started with 4 strips to make our strip sets, to make that 8.5 inch block, we have 1 extra, unit per block set. So it's kind of cool. They look really neat. I like the pattern. You can definitely, put it together, twist it up, do something different. You can probably get a bunch of different designs. This one was my favorite. I'm going to start sewing some blocks together, and then I'll put a border on and show you the full finished one. But before we go, let me show you just real quick how to put your blocks together. For me personally, I'm going to sew together this block, this block, this block, because I feel like my pattern is very blocky. If yours is a little different, you can of course stitch it however you feel like you want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my block, do right sides together, sew down this seam 1/4 inch all the way down. I'm then going to do chain stitching, which means I'm going to keep stitching, stitch off the edge, right sides together this block, kind of butt it up right against there, keep sewing, which is going to give me this nice little tail of thread here that's going to create almost a pin in my block. I am then going to take those and do right sides together this way, making sure I nestle the seam real nice and then sew across. And then that's going to give me my completed block. And I'm going to do that for all of my blocks, leaving me with, I'm going to have 5 by 5. So a really good size quilt. You can also leave out the 3 super scrappy ones, leave out 2 extra blocks, and do 4 by 5 if you'd like to also. So I'm going to start sewing some blocks together, put a border on, and we'll see in just a minute. Okay, so now that I have everything sewn together, you can see it turned out really good. It's really cute. Your blocks end up about 10 inches roughly. And again, that's from, I didn't trim up any blocks. I didn't true up any of these to make sure they were super, super square. That is up to you. If you feel like, oh, I am a perfectionist and I need to do it, do it. If you're someone like me that's like, no, I'm just gonna get this done, get it done. The other thing I wanna let you know is when I was sewing these together, they really do just make their points. You don't have to get super fussy on making these points meet. I make sure that my intersection of these 4 blocks, that this always matches, but these just went together. I think there's some that might be a little, but in the grand scheme, you can't tell. You can tell that almost every single point came out. And again, I didn't pin. I just ensured that right sides together. I lined up my raw edges. I made sure that this point was connected and let my sewing machine and my 1/4 inch seam do the rest of it. So that is why accurate cutting, accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, accurate pressing are really important in this one. And again, accuracy of your 1/4 inch seam allowance just means keep that same machine. That same machine, depending on the machine I sew here at the shop and the machine I sew at my house, they are the same brand machine. They are a different level of machine. So it's all a little different depending on the 1/4 inch seam you use. So just make sure, start and finish your quilt with the same machine and you'll get the best results. The other thing is, there is a pattern you can purchase if you feel like you need it. The pattern is really nice because what it gives you is extra math. We've done all the math for you if you want to change your size of strips. Maybe you've been organizing your stash at home and you have a ton of 2 inch strips or a ton of 3 inch strips. Whatever that is, we've done the math for you so you know what you're going to get with 3 inch strips or 2 inch strips or smaller. If you want to make your quilt king size. So all of those funny math numbers, how to make your quilt bigger, use different strips, use a different quantity of strips. We have that all in the pattern that you can purchase, whether you want to print it and we can ship it to you or a digital download, you can get all of those maths for you. Otherwise, watch this quilt, watch this video over and over again and you'll make your own double twist. I also put a 4 inch border on mine. So my quilt is about 60 inch square. And again, 40 strips. 1 jelly roll can make your very own double twist.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.